Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the top 21 books that I want to read in 2021. So these are all going to be books that I already own, that are already on my TBR. I thought a fun way to make this list is I have 21 shelves back here, 3 bookcases, all of them with 7 shelves, which equals 21. And I thought what I could do is look at each shelf and pick one book from each shelf that I most want to read this year. So to give you guys a little bit about how my bookshelf is organized, it's not. I used to have this shelf as a rainbow and it was really beautiful and I loved it, but I did not keep up the rainbow. So you'll see it's kind of still in a rainbow, but with like a lot of random stuff mixed in it. So like you can see right here, used to be all red, but as I was getting new books, I kind of just stuck them wherever. So there really is no organization to this, which I feel like might work in terms of picking one book from each shelf because they're all just gonna be a random assortment. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. They have a wide range of classes from topics such as illustration, graphic design, photography, lifestyle, productivity. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. No matter what 2021 brings, you can spend it creating something meaningful with Skillshare's online classes because time is what we make it. One of the classes you can take, called Productivity Today, Managing Attention in the Digital Age, is all about learning how to control your attention and take your productivity to new heights. From app and website notifications to emails, it can be difficult to stay focused on the task at hand, but in this class, Kevin Siskar shares how you can increase your attention span, quiet your mind, and get more done. And the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial to the premium membership so you can explore your creativity. So I'm gonna go choose all of the books and we'll come back and you'll see which ones that I've picked. But honestly, like, I don't even know right now which ones I most want to read. I kind of just want to look at the shelves and see from each one what I'm most excited by. From this shelf, I chose The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. This is a book that has sounded so amazing to me and I've owned it for a while and never picked it up. So this is a historical book that takes place in Scotland. So it says a forgotten queen of 6th century Scotland and twin sister of the man who inspired the legend of Merlin. The Lost Queen will take you to a faraway world, rescuing a passionate and brave woman from the fog of history and restoring her rightful place in one of the most enduring legends of all time. And I hope that I love it. It sounds like something that I would really enjoy. From this shelf, I chose These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is another book that I meant to read last year. So this is a YA fantasy that takes place in Shanghai in the 1920s and is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. But there's like monsters and magic, and I've just heard amazing things about this. It sounds like it's going to be so fun. So from this shelf, I chose The Bone Shard's Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is a sapphic fantasy that sounds so good. It's basically about something called bone shard magic. And the main character is the emperor's daughter, but not his heir. And her memories of her childhood have been erased. And so she tries to master the art of bone shard magic to overthrow her father. And I just heard such amazing things about this, and I obviously want to read it because it is a sapphic fantasy, and I just need more sapphic fantasies in my life. The book I chose from this shelf is Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. This is an Indian-inspired fantasy that I've owned for a long time. This is an ARC that I got actually, and I never got around to reading it when it came out. But lately, I've been seeing some of my friends talk about this in regards to a fantasy that has a good romance, and that really piqued my interest. And this follows a girl who comes from a group of people whose blood is really sought out for the magical properties that it has. And so the Emperor's mystics have now found out that she has these magical powers, and so they are trying to hunt her down for her blood. And I've just really been wanting to read this. Like I said, I've been told that it has a good romance in it, and I think that all the books in this series are out. I don't know how many there are, if it's like a duology or a trilogy, but this is one of those books that I have had on my shelves for a while that I've always, like, in the back of my mind wanted to read. From this shelf, I chose Gods of Jadens Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I read Mexican Gothic by her last year and I really loved it. So I'm super excited to get to this. This is a fantasy book inspired by Mexican folklore. It's set in the Jazz Age, and it's about this girl who accidentally frees the Mayan god of death, who requests her help in recovering the throne from his brother. And yeah, it just sounds super interesting. I don't know that I've really read any Mexican inspired fantasies, so I'm super excited. The book I chose off of this shelf is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is a fantasy book that I've been recommended a lot. A lot of people say that it's like a really fun fantasy. So we're basically following a band of retired mercenaries, and in this world, mercenary groups are kind of like treated like rock stars. They go on tours and they have fans, and so this group is retired. They're all old men, but then something happens and they end up having to bring the band back together to go on one final mission. And I've heard that there's like a lot of fantastical creatures in this. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragon-esque, and it just sounds like a lot of fun. And I also really want to read the sequel, which I believe is about one of these characters' daughter. From this shelf, I chose The Space Between Us by Mika Johnson. This is a sci-fi book that is about alternate worlds. So in this universe, people can travel to alternate worlds as long as their alternate self in that world has died. So if your alternate self has died, you can travel to that world. And the main character has died in like 372 different worlds. So she is one of the people that is able to travel to the most alternate worlds. So she's hired by the government to do like jobs traveling around. But she kind of stumbles upon this conspiracy about why so many of her alternate selves have died, and this just sounds so good. Again, another sci-fi. I'm really wanting to read more sci-fi books, and I love things with alternate timelines or realities. From this shelf, I chose The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. This is a book I've been wanting to read for a long time. It takes place during the legend of the Iliad, but it is from the point of view of the women who were captured in the Greek camp during the final weeks of the Trojan War. And that just sounds like amazing to me. And I don't know, I haven't heard many things about this book, but it really just sounds like something that I am going to love. And it's one of those books that I've kind of always had my eye on and always intended to pick up. From this shelf, I chose The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. This is the final book in the Winter Night trilogy. I am loving this trilogy so much, and I cannot wait to see how it concludes. Basically, this is a Russian folklore inspired sort of fantasy. It's more historical with like light fantastical elements, and we're following this girl named Vasya who has some sort of like foretold destiny. I loved the first two books, and I cannot wait to see how it concludes, because each book so far has gotten better in my opinion. So I'm hoping that this one is just like the best. So from that shelf, I picked The Twisted Ones by T. King Fisher. If you watched my reading books you recommended to me video, you would know that I read The Hollow Places by this author, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And this is a book that I had started to read, but I DNF'd it. I honestly wasn't far into it at all. After loving The Hollow Places, I want to give this another try. So this is a horror book about a woman whose grandmother dies, and she has to go to her house and like clear it out because her grandma was a hoarder. While she's clearing out the house, she finds her grandfather's journals, which are kind of like manic and crazy and describe like all these really bizarre things. And then she starts to encounter some of the crazy things that he was describing in the journals. And I think it has to do with like the woods around the house and like maybe some people who live out in the woods. I don't really know. I remember when I first got this, somebody had told me that it had like kind of Blair Witch vibes, which really intrigued me because I love that movie. So yeah, I'm super, super excited to give this book another try. So from this shelf, I chose Hench by Natalie Zena Walcott. This is a book about superheroes. Basically, the main character works for supervillains. She kind of does like odd jobs for them. She ends up getting fired because of a hero. So she sets out on a mission to take the heroes down. And it just sounds so good. I had never heard of this book, and then I saw it on Goodreads and I was like, hold up, that sounds amazing. From this shelf, I chose Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. This is probably the #1 book out of all the books that I own that I want to read. It's the book that I'm recommended the most, but I'm nervous, okay? If you don't know, Seanan McGuire is my all-time favorite author. Her Wayward Children series is my favorite series, but I'm nervous to read this, and I don't know why. So I really don't know much about the plot of this. It sounds very complicated. It's about these two twins who aren't twins, who are maybe gods, and there's like alchemical magic. But I've heard amazing things about this. I feel like it will be 5 stars, but I'm just scared to read it, okay? But I have to read it this year. You guys need to bully me. If I have not read this by the end of 2021, I give you permission to ruthlessly bully me. Just like roast me, bully me, make me read this, please. From this shelf, I chose City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for so many years. It's a fantasy book that takes place in 18th century Cairo, and it is about a woman who is like scamming people into thinking that she's summoning jinns, and then she accidentally summons a real one, and then it's like taken to the City of Brass, which is like this city full of jinns. This series I feel like is super popular. Everybody loves it, and I have just been totally missing out. I started reading it once. As you can see, I got 1 chapter in, 20 pages, and I was really enjoying it, but I never finished it, and then I never picked it back up again. But hopefully this year is the year. So the one I chose from this shelf is Dead Sky Morning by Karina Halley. This is the third, I think the third book, hold on. Yeah, this is the 3rd book in the Experiment in Terror series. I binged the first 2 books last December and I was obsessed, and I wanted to keep binging the whole series, but I had like so many other books that I had to read. So this is the 3rd book. This series is following Perry and Dex, who are a ghost hunting duo filming a ghost hunting show. They go around the country filming this ghost hunting show, supernatural hunting show, and I really loved the first 2 books. If you are looking for a really fun supernatural series, it kind of has like Supernatural, the show, and X-Files vibes, and it has a really slow burn romance as well that I am loving. So yeah, I definitely recommend the series. I'm so excited to read the next book and just keep binging them. The book from this shelf that I chose is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a sci-fi book that sounds super interesting to me. So basically, Earth is dying and the last remains of humanity have gone into space to find another habitable planet. and they end up finding one that looks like a paradise, but when they get there, it turns out to be a total nightmare. It's already inhabited. It is not friendly towards humans. That's all I know about this. I've also heard that it has to do with spiders, like horrific spiders, which sounds super scary and super like I want to know what the spiders are about. I think that someone even told me that there's a point of view from a spider, which is super weird and intriguing. From this shelf, I chose Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is a book that I either need to read or get rid of because I've owned it for so long and I've never even attempted to read it. Don't even know what it's about. I know that it is very popular and beloved, but I either need to read it or it's gotta go. All I know about it is that it's about this guy and dreams and like some sort of hidden magical world. I don't know anything else about it. And honestly, I can tell you that I've read the synopsis a couple times and I've heard people talk about this book like hundreds of times and I've never understood what it's about. The one I chose from that shelf is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a young adult Arthurian retelling about this girl who goes to this academy. While she's there, she uncovers this like secret society of people who hunt down magical creatures. And in that society is a mage who calls himself Merlin. And the society is full of people who are descendants of King Arthur's knights. After she witnesses them performing magic, they try to wipe her memory but fail, and it unlocks this memory that she has of her mother's death that is connected to this secret society. So she has to decide if she wants to use her newfound magical abilities to take the society down or join them. And I've heard amazing things about this. Like everybody is giving it 5 stars and raving about it, and I love Arthurian legends, but I've never read a retelling that I absolutely loved. So I am very excited for this. It sounds like it's going to be a very unique twist on Arthurian stories. From this shelf, I chose Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This was a book I meant to read last year, but the video that I was planning on reading this for, I ended up scrapping, so I didn't get to this, but I want to read it so badly. This is a dark academia about a rebellious undergraduate who uncovers a shocking secret about an exclusive circle of students. And yeah, I've heard super mixed things about this. It has a really low rating on Goodreads, and I feel like people either absolutely love it or absolutely hate it, which really intrigues me. I want to know how I feel. From this shelf, I chose The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the sequel to The Bridge Kingdom, which I read last year. I did a reading vlog on and I loved it. It is a fantasy romance, and this is the sequel. The first book ended on like such a cliffhanger, and I've been dying to read this. Also, this is the Bay Crate edition, so the book, like the inside, is just so beautiful all the way around, and then the inside dust jacket has a map of the world. To give like a synopsis of the first book like very quickly, it's basically about a girl who is tasked with murdering the rival kingdom's king, and so she goes in, marries him with the plot to kill him, and ends up falling in love. But it ends on such a cliffhanger, and I just cannot wait to read the sequel. So the book I chose from this shelf is The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerizing Girl by Theodora Goss. This is the third and final book in the Daughters of Athena Club series. The first book is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, which was one of my favorite books of last year. So I'm just like, I'm really excited to read the last book, but I'm also scared because I don't want it to end. I love this series so much. It is basically a Victorian murder mystery, girl gang, secret societies, daughters of famous Gothic characters. It's such an amazing series. If you haven't already picked it up, I highly recommend it. And I don't want it to end, but I also want to know how it ends. It's a dilemma. So the book I chose from this shelf is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book like took the romance community by storm in 2020. I believe that this also won the Goodreads award for romance, which like Doesn't mean anything, but it's very popular. So this is a fantasy romance. It's following a girl named Poppy, and it says that she is a maiden, which means she lives a life of solitude, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure. And she's waiting for her ascension. So then she is assigned a guard who is honor bound to ensure her ascension. But destiny and duty become tangled with desire and need, and he tempts her with the forbidden. Okay, I never knew what this was about, but this sounds amazing. So those were the 21 books that I want to read in 2021. It was really interesting to pick the books, like one from each shelf, because like I said, I didn't really even know what this list was gonna be, but I'm so excited for all of these, and like reading all the synopses made me even more excited to get to these. So let me know in the comments what is the top #1 book that you have to get to this year. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!